Imagine you're taking a flight from New York City to London. When you first take off, all you really have to do is head east. Sure, you don't have to be exact, but let's head east. Let's get directionally correct. But as you get closer to where you want to land, the directions get more important. If you're 10 years until retirement, we're pretty close to London. We have to get clear on where we're going and what we need to do to get there. This is the start of some of the most important times in your financial life. This is the stage where mistakes can become permanent, but smart decisions can drastically improve your retirement. So what I'm going to talk about today is if I were 10 years from retirement, this is exactly what I would be focusing on. Number one, I would figure out how much is retirement going to actually cost me. See, most people, they just have some made up number in their head. I want 2 million, I want 5 million, I want 700,000, then I'll be happy, then I'll retire, that's what I need. But there's actually a way that we can figure out how much do I actually need for retirement? What is retirement going to cost me? Most people have never truly sat down and calculated the true cost. I would want to know things like, what is my month-to-month spending going to look like in retirement? How much do I spend now? Is it going to be more in retirement? Is it going to be less? Will my mortgage be paid off, or do I have to factor that into my retirement spending? How much will healthcare cost me? Do I want to travel in retirement? How much am I going to spend or allocate to travel? How will my expenses change from today when I'm working, I have income coming in, to when I retire and start living off of Social Security and my portfolio and other income sources? Really getting a clear idea on my month-to-month spending, both from fixed spending, maybe that's a mortgage, taxes, insurance, groceries, day-to-day living, basic living needs, but then also variable, my travel, entertainment, gifts, all those things. I want a clear picture on what my retirement spending is going to look like. Because retirement planning is also income planning. And yes, investments matter, but how do I turn that investment portfolio into actual income to sustain my lifestyle in retirement? The second thing I would do is stress test my plan. What would happen if I retire into a perfect market? Perfect being exactly how I think it's going to play out. What would it look like if I retire and we go into a long sustained bear market? How does that affect my plan? Can I still retire? What happens if I spend more than I think I'm going to spend in retirement? How does that affect my plan? Can I sustain my retirement spending, or what needs to change? What happens if inflation is higher than we think it is? Sure, it might be 2 or 3% on average. What if it's 5%? How does that affect my plan? What happens if I live longer than I think I would? What happens if I live into my late 90s? Does that affect my plan? What happens if taxes go up? Right now, we're in pretty low tax rates historically in recent history. What happens if they go back up? How does that change my plan? Even though I'm 10 years from retirement, what happens if in 7 years I get laid off and my income from my job stops? Could I retire then? How does that affect my plan? So I really want to be focusing on stress testing my plan for all these different variables. Sure, we don't know the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but it would be nice to know if certain things, high inflation, high taxes, how does this all affect my plan? Because a good retirement plan should not only work if the conditions are perfect, it should also hold up in tough, difficult times as well. Number 3, I would get serious on tax planning. What is my account makeup right now? How much money do I have in pre-tax accounts? How much money do I have in Roth accounts? How much money do I have in a taxable brokerage account? What is the makeup of that? Based on what that looks like today, can I use the next 10 years until retirement to make one of those pieces bigger? Maybe that'll give me more flexibility in retirement from a tax planning perspective. See, taxes are usually one of the biggest things that people overlook for retirement. If you can have a solid breakdown of pre-tax money, Roth money, and taxable brokerage account money, that can create flexibility in how you would draw money for retirement from a tax perspective. I would start looking at things like Roth conversions. Like, is there an opportunity to move money from pre-tax accounts to Roth accounts in maybe low income years? I would look at future required minimum distributions. What does that look like when I'm in my mid 70s? Is there ways to mitigate that lower, potentially with Roth conversions? If I have a taxable brokerage account, can I do some tax loss harvesting, some tax gain harvesting in low income years to plan for withdrawals in retirement? and also just getting an understanding of how my different accounts will be taxed. The fourth thing I would look at is your investment composition. How are you currently invested? Are you not taking enough risk? Are you taking too much risk for your financial plan? When you build out your financial plan, it will help guide you on your investment mix, but you have an understanding of how you're currently invested. Sometimes people will tell me they're very conservative. They don't like taking on a lot of risk. And then I look under the hood at their investment portfolio and they're 90, 100% equities. So it doesn't align with how they think they're invested and how they're actually invested. But then also the third piece is, how do you have to be invested to reach your financial plan goals? So I would ask questions like, how much risk do I truly need to take at this stage in my life? What does my financial plan say I need to take at this stage in life? Could I emotionally handle seeing my portfolio fall 20 or 30% right before retirement? Or if I can't, how do I plan so that if that does happen, it doesn't scare me when I first retire? Is my portfolio diversified? Or am I too heavily concentrated in one company, one sector, or one market? Do I have a withdrawal strategy built out when I retire to withstand a sustained period of bad markets? Because at this stage, it's usually not about maximizing returns. Sure, we still want to get returns on our money, but the conversation shifts. It's about protecting the flexibility and avoiding major setbacks right before retirement. The fifth thing I would focus on is healthcare planning. Depending on when you retire, is it going to be before Medicare age? If so, how do you plan to bridge the gap? If you do plan to retire at or after Medicare age, which program do you want to get on? Healthcare is one of the biggest expenses that people have in retirement. So I would want to get a clear idea on what my Medicare is going to cost me, the out-of-pocket costs, HSAs, if I have those, can I maximize those right now? I would want to get really clear on what my healthcare costs are going to be. And the sixth thing I'd want to focus on is just my income strategy in retirement. Because retirement is very different than saving for retirement. When you're putting money in is different than when you're taking money out. So how do you plan for replacing your paycheck income in retirement? So I would really spend some time and ask questions like, which accounts am I going to withdraw from first, or in what order? When does it make sense to claim Social Security? How much cash should I have in my portfolio? How flexible can my spending be if we do have sustained bad markets? How do taxes impact my withdrawal amounts over time? As you approach retirement, figuring out how you're going to generate income from a portfolio is just as important as the portfolio composition itself. At the end of the day, if I am 10 years away from retirement, I would not spend my time trying to predict the market. I would spend my time creating a financial plan and a strategy that creates flexibility, confidence, and clarity. Because retirement is not just about hitting some number. It's about making work optional without constantly worrying about money. Thank you all for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.